Hey, welcome back, race fans, to another episode of Buckle Up, an Ultrarunning Conversation. Mandy is not here. She is picking up cones still from her NOCO Urban Ultra. It was a 50 and 100-mile relay or solo divisions. It went from Fort Collins to Timnath to Windsor to Greeley. And I'm sure there's a lot of cones involved in that. So we're really fortunate to have Jeff Iosa with us. Thanks for coming on the show, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Love filling in. How's everything going with you?
You may recall Jeff was on episode 54 of Buckle Up, and this is episode 81. So I don't know, 30-something weeks ago Jeff was on. But Jeff and I have been, I think we met at Leadville in 22.
2022.
And, 22. And yeah, and we kind of stayed in touch ever since. We've hooked up in different races, and I helped you out at Steamboat last year, I want to say. And yeah, you got some things coming up this weekend, Jeff. What do you got going on this weekend?
So we have a big race in Florida. It's called the Pinellas Trail Challenge. It's 46 miles on a urban paved trail, and actually runs right through my town. And so I've run this race 8 years. This year we're actually just live streaming the race. And it should be a blast. I got a whole bunch of people coming in town, staying at my house tomorrow night, and so we're gearing up for that. And we're gonna go up against UTMB with the live stream on Saturday.
All right, just head to head there. Jeff, is it on Pacer Travel on YouTube's Pacer Travel channel?
Yes, it's our Pacer Travel YouTube channel.
Great, I'll put a link down in the show notes if you wanted to catch that. Hey, do you have any photographers at this race, at the Pinellas Challenge?
We do have one coming out. He's a local guy that's just starting to get into photography. So he just started picking it up in the last 6 months and starting to like it.
Well, that's interesting because our guest today is Anastasia Wilde, who is no stranger to the ultra endurance photography space. Maybe your guy could listen to the show and get catch a thing or two from Anastasia Wilde. She is the real deal. She is always out on the course. I've known Anastasia for quite a few years now, I want to say. I work aid stations for Destination Trails when I'm not running the race themselves for Destination Trails. So I've been around since like 2018, 2019, and I've known her since. And she's just a super sweet, funny person, and every time it's a treat to see her.
Yeah, it was great hearing her stories because a lot of people don't realize what it takes to be a photographer in a 200-mile race, and she goes right into it, from hiking out to remote spots to staying up all night long just to get that perfect shot. And so it was fun listening to her stories.
Yeah, I think you and I both have ran like road marathons, and quite a few, or enough of them to know that there's typically the photographer that's sitting in the middle of the road on a lounge chair with a tripod and a camera, and he's just clicking away, the same picture over and over and over. And we don't get that feel in the trail running community. We get different angles, and these guys are really working the scenery and the terrain that they're in to get those really cool shots that we purchase, right? Well, cool. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Well, we hope you enjoy this episode with Anastasia Wilde. I'm pretty sure that Mandy will be back next week. Hopefully she'll have cleaned up all them cones all over northern Colorado. And if you see one of her cones out there, hit her up in the messages and let her know you found one, because they're orange cones with, I think, big blue stickers on them that say runwindsor.com. Yeah, hit her up if you find one of her cones out there. I'm sure there'll be a straggler here and there.
Thanks, deal.
Jeff. I appreciate you jumping on and filling in for us in short notice. And it's always a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Take care. Hi, Anastasia. Thanks for taking some time out of your day today to talk with us. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well myself. How about you, Jeff?
I'm doing well. Sweating my butt off down here in Florida.
I'm not. It's actually finally started to rain here in western Colorado, and it hasn't stopped, is the issue. So now it's rained for like the last 3.5 days straight. So anyway,
Wow.
That's great. It's put out some fires and much needed moisture, but everything in moderation is probably better than what we're getting. So either way.
Yeah.
Anastasia, we want to talk about all things race photography and all the things that you're currently doing, but we should start back at the beginning on how you found yourself in this niche space of ultra running photography or endurance photography. Why don't we start there?
Yeah, sure. I went to Rocky Mountain School of Photography. It was a school up until last year in Missoula, and they had a year-long professional program where you learn about taking photos, doing some video marketing. So it really kind of sets you up so you can start your business once you graduate from the school. And I remember kind of bouncing between a couple of different things. I tried a wedding, I tried some of those more retail shoots, but I always looked at like REI catalogs and some of those like promotional pieces, and I was like, oh, I get out in the outdoors and I enjoy doing that. Like that would be so cool to put those two things together. So when I graduated, I wanted to be just a general adventure photographer. So my husband's a climber, so I was kind of ingrained a little bit in that because he could set up ropes for me. And then, some mountain biking was also in the rotation. And then it just got to a point where I enjoyed running myself. I didn't do a ton of it, but I really connected with running. And then a friend of mine did an FKT in the Beartooths in Montana. And that was my first time like backpacking and kind of, we hiked in some food and stuff for him and met him on trail during that. And it was really special. I got to be in these beautiful places and, got to see the grit to what it takes to run 100 miles because I really hadn't been around that, mostly like road half marathons and whatnot. And that really kind of sparked my passion there. And so I did photograph like vacation races, road half marathons, and I did some more local events, but nothing trail related really, except for the rut. I kind of invited myself and kind of got the lay of the land. And then Hillary from Destination Trail, she used to work there, asked me to come and photograph Bigfoot, Moab, and Tahoe. And that was kind of the end of the beginning of the end. Anyways, but from there, I just kind of got plugged into the system, and that was 5 years ago. There wasn't a ton of 200s at that time, so it was the Destination Trail and then Cocodona, which I did shoot the following year. So it just kind of bloomed from there, and I've gotten to know a lot of the runners and race directors, and it's been a really cool journey. Yeah.
Anastasia, what year was that Hillary? Yeah, what year was that Hillary reached out to you?
2021. So Bigfoot at that point, Tahoe was still in September, so it was Bigfoot, Tahoe, and then Moab, and then that's the year they had that big fire, and it got canceled. So I haven't done the full Tahoe course yet. I've just done the out and back since that was the year.
That is always the thing. That's the thing. Are you going to get the full Tahoe course? Everyone's always curious about it every year.
I know, me too. Because I feel like I know that stretch of Tahoe very well, so it would be awesome to do the whole loop.
That's funny, Anastasia. I was registered for that 2021 race at Tahoe, and I've never done the full loop either. I'm registered for 2026 right now. But we'll see how the end of the year, beginning of the year plays out as far as lotteries go and all those things. So I'm hopeful that I'll be at Tahoe. I'm also hopeful that there'll be a full loop, but you never can tell.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, and so then, so this would have been my 5th Bigfoot that just happened a couple of weeks ago. So we're into the 5th season of things, and it's really fun.
Wow. Are you originally from Montana?
I am not. I've been here since I've been in Missoula since 2010, and then I went to high school up in Eureka, Montana. So it's like 6 miles from the Canadian border. But no, I don't know if we want to get into that. Brian kind of knows the story, but it's a little bit long-winded. But I was adopted from Russia, so when I was 11.
Yeah, actually, we share that. I was adopted from South America when I was 2.5, 3 years old. So yeah, I do. Anastasia, you've been leaning towards, most recently, I guess, I think from an outside perspective, maybe it must be, but you've been leaning towards these 200s. Is that kind of your bread and butter? Do you prefer that? Or is it just the way the cards fell?
Yeah, so with working for Destination Trail, it gives me an access to, 4 200 plus mile races. And they take up quite a bit. The 300 this year, it took me 2 days to drive there, 2 days to drive back home because it was like 22-hour drive each direction. And then, the race was 7 days was the cutoff, but 8 days for like the entirety. It was Friday to Friday that the race ran. And then by the time you take in 10 days to edit, it's most of the month. So those 200 were like pretty intensive, and then I've been going back. I've done Cocodona 4 times now too. Yeah, I just kind of like keep picking them up. And then my friend was shooting Summit 200, and so he needed a second shooter. So I was like, I'll do it. Like, I have the availability.
Oh, I didn't see you there. I was out there too.
Yeah, that was a cool one. I went up French Pass on day 4, I think. That was really beautiful. I saw a moose and I saw a couple, but it was pretty cool. But yeah, and I think the community around them, not that they, people come back for these and you get to know them, and it just kind of feels like a mini reunion every time you get to see everyone.
Does the 200 allow you to be more creative with your pictures rather than like you're seeing a lot of people at one time, and the 200 you're seeing them more sporadic, so it allows you to be more creative?
Yeah, we definitely have days 1 and 2 are super crucial for us as we're thinking about photography, because that's when everybody's the closest still. So we can get on day 1, if each photographer gets to see everybody, then we at least have 3 photos of you. Because I know at Bigfoot this year, with some of the reroutes and the closures and stuff, a drive from an aid station to an aid station could be like 3 hours long. And so we got everybody on day 1 multiple times, at least 3 times. And then I don't think we saw Killian again until he finished, which was Sunday morning. But the logistics of trying to only get to one person when the course is so inaccessible is really difficult. He was moving too fast and I missed him on day 1. He was, I think, an hour and a half ahead of the cutoff to the aid station, or not cutoff, but first projected time. So I did miss him. That was unfortunate, but we just moved too fast.
Yeah, his fault.
But yeah, so day 1 and 2 is definitely where we see the most people and they're closer together. And then once they start finishing, there's only 2 of us out on course because somebody has to be at the finish line. So logistically, we kind of try to either get where we can see the most people and it's still beautiful, or we kind of zero in on certain sections knowing that we'll see more people down the road. But yeah.
What about, I got a question, like in the trips we know it could be anywhere from 3 to 5 to 7 days, 200 plus distances. So maybe just walk us through like the day in the life of the photographer of like day 2. Like, what does that look like? I mean, I'm sure it's not exactly the same as the other photographer that you're working with, but I'm pretty sure it's probably similar. I mean, what does sleep look like? Where are you eating? Like, what's the transportation look like? What does a day 2 look like on a 200 mile as a photographer?
Sure. Day 2 is still pretty busy, so we're likely to be out sunrise to sunset somewhere because we can see majority of the pack on that day. So, you get some sleep. Usually day 1 to day 2, we knowing that it's going to get more difficult to see people down the road, we get a little bit less sleep. So, but somewhere between maybe 3 or 4 hours. That's a good night's sleep. And then we'll just go somewhere to sunset typically, or either through hike a section. And you're just carrying all of your water, all your food. If we're lucky enough to be near an aid station, they feed us. Thank you. Otherwise, we're kind of just living out of our cars. So, you sleep a little bit, you get out on course, you take photos. And then we always have a daily submission. So we have to submit, 10 photos, typically, just so they can use stuff for social media and kind of keep people in the loop of what's happening out on the course. But yeah, I mean, not too different from the other days. There may be more moving around down when you get to days 3 plus. But yeah, typically we stay in the same area. But like you mentioned earlier, Jeff, too, we do get a lot more flexibility. But oftentimes, we prefer not to just stand in one spot and get a shot of everybody. Because then also it kind of gets mind-numbing a little bit. So we do kind of hike around a little bit, climb up on some ridge, or, get a few different perspectives just so we're not just standing in the same spot. Unless it's like, I don't know, like coming down the the Jacob's Ladder, the portion at Moab, like that's the shot, right? So we want to make sure everybody gets one. But otherwise, we have like quite a bit of flexibility.
Or climbing up Cliffhanger at Cocodona, right in Sedona. So I ran into one of the photographers out there on a fun hike.
It's pretty fun. And then it gets us, I don't know, when you have the opportunity to kind of take a look around and make it your own, because, you know, going out to the same course year after year after year, we don't want to shoot the same exact thing. So, and we also want to give people good photos. So if we're excited about them, then they'll be more excited.
Anastasia, you mentioned like carrying your own water and your own food. Also, you have to be prepared for the elements and the weather. Also, you have, I don't even know how many cameras you have, but it seems like a lot of like digital equipment, like between lenses and cameras and lights and tripods or, you know, whatever it might be. What does that all weigh in at? And like, what are you lugging through these mountains? I've passed a photographer on a trail in a race, and I was surprised to have passed him. I mean, of course he's fresh, but he's also carrying a lot of weight, and I'm not. So what does your pack look like?
Yeah, I usually have 2 cameras, and they have different lenses on them that, you know, one is like a lot more zoomed in, so I can get that compression, and then the other one is a little bit wider, so when people get closer to me, I can get a photo with the entire landscape and them pretty close. So yeah, and then obviously you need all the extra batteries. If you're out there between, you know, or around when there's not enough light, we'll have a flash out there with us. Or if you're doing night shots or something. But yeah, it depends on how long I'm gone. Like if I'm gone from my car for like an 18-hour stretch or something, you know, I need at least like 5 liters of water, and then my cameras, and then, you know, the different layers and food. So I bet it gets up to like 30 pounds. Sorry, I'm like looking at my pack. Yeah, I think I bet it's around 30 pounds when I'm like really weighed down. So it is quite slow going. And it's always humbling. Like think about like going up the power line or something. You're like, oh, I'm dying right now. I'm going to take my camera out and take some photos. Like, let me take a break as everybody passes you. You know, nothing more humbling than you guys being like 180 miles in or something, and then you're still passing us out there. We'll get to where we need to be, right?
But you're putting in the hours too, so you're putting in not getting enough sleep and all that. So you're doing the work too.
On a lesser scale, for sure.
What do you think you average hiking mile wise when you're at a race typically?
Yeah, it depends. Sometimes probably the longest days we'll have is like 15 to 18 miles in a single day. And that's the top of the range for sure. Typically it's like, I don't know, anywhere between 5 to 10. So like my friend at Bigfoot, she had some of the longer hiking days. So she did, I think she said 40 miles. I only did 25, just the way things worked out. I hung out at an aid station a little bit longer. Yeah, somewhere between there.
And the photog community seems, sports photog, endurance sports, ultra running, 200-mile community seems pretty small and niche. And I'm sure that you're in contact with all your co-workers essentially at some point, even though you might all be subcontractors of some sort. Is that accurate? Are you guys just communicating throughout the day, throughout the weekend, offline, outside of an event, and all those things?
Oh yeah. So Jason and I photographed that first year together in 2021, and then Howie came in for Moab, so I got to work alongside him then. And then the following years when Sarah joined the team, it's been the 3 of us for the Destination Trail ones for the last, this is our 4th year together. So we text pretty much every day. and it's fun to like bring, you know, people on other projects that we have, like for Crazy Mountain. It was fun to have Howie and Sarah come out. So it was like a different grouping than typical, because I typically shoot Cocodona with Scott and Howie, and then Jason worked with Scott on a 100-mile race, and I worked with, you know, some other folks. So yeah, it's fun to like all work together. And I do feel like the 200s, like there's not many of us. So when a new one pops up, oftentimes we get roped into it. Whatever, I love it. So
Yeah, they're definitely getting more and more of them, and even bumping up into the 300s now. So it sounds like you're going to have your handful.
Yeah, I had one every month except for September, April to October. So I think I have 6 200s this year. and it's a lot. The Summit to Bigfoot was a really tight turnaround, especially because I did Crazy Mountain the day before I went out to Summit. So that was definitely a hectic stretch there for a minute, but I've had a couple of weeks off now, editing and doing admin work and stuff. So it's nice.
Jeff's down in Florida, and he doesn't actually have any seasons there, but the rest of us in North America do. And so, what does your off season look like? Like, are you still doing the same type of work? Are you shifting gears and just relaxing and enjoying some downtime?
Yeah. So this is only my second full calendar year full-time freelancing. When I first started these, I was working at that photo school that I had mentioned. And so I was the program coordinator, where I got to kind of set up shoots and deal with some of the nitty-gritty, which I'm actually using now to help race directors organize some of their races and kind of build the photo teams and stuff. So that's been super fun. But when I first started, and the first year that I went freelance full time, I had like a whole 6-month chunk off. So I was definitely, meeting with some local athletes to kind of fill in some of that work and doing some more reaching out. And then I feel like this year, with the 300 being a month earlier than I would typically start. So my season started in April, and then it's not going to be over until November. And then even with that time off, I'm still like, I haven't updated my website really. So there's like, I need to do those kinds of things. I have a couple events that I volunteer my time for, like Run Up for Air. So it is a little bit more relaxed. I tend to hibernate, which is, I don't know, it's kind of funny, like living in Montana. When it's the nicest here, I'm never here. And then when it's, negative 30 degrees, I'm hanging out at home.
Here to there.
Yeah, but yeah, I do a lot of reading and hang out with my dog and my husband. Yeah, but I try to take it easy as much as I can.
We have an interesting connection, Anastasia. Let's see, how does this work? So your husband's, or your father-in-law, was a science teacher in the town that I live in Glenwood Springs for, I tease, but it's probably like 1,000 years that he was a science teacher. My mother-in-law was my first grade teacher for 1,000 years in the same town, in the same school district. But your father-in-law, Mike, and I have a small connection just because of the small town vibes that we live in Western Colorado. And somehow you married his son. So it was this weird connection all in itself. I know Mike's been doing going through some health struggles and challenges, but it sounds like he's on the mend now. So kudos to Mike, and I'm glad to hear that he's on the mend and he's doing much better. So
yeah,
congrats for that. Yeah,
he's doing much better. And I think, I don't know, it's tough going through that, not for the first time too. So yeah, it's I love him. After Summit, I went there and I just hung out with them for a day or so, and they celebrated my birthday a little bit later and had all these plans. So I love my in-laws.
So after doing Summit, are you going out to do the Cowboy 200 race this year?
I don't know. I'm not. I am not sure when it happens even, but Superior was a later add-on. I didn't buy my tickets till, or maybe earlier this week or earlier last week. Anyways, but it's next week. So it's a kind of a tight turnaround. And then I am putting the photo team together for the rut. So that's been a little bit of it's been super fun. I love giving people that opportunity to come out and maybe try something new that they haven't done. And also just, I don't know. I remember starting out doing these races, and it's super cool to be in the place where I get to hire people for these opportunities. And so, so that'll be really fun. So those will be a busy couple of weeks, and then I'm coming out of my wedding retirement, and I'm gonna photograph my friend's wedding.
Whoa! All right.
I was curious.
Really out there.
Yeah, I was wondering if you get those.
Yeah, it's like not once in a lifetime, but I've only photographed one wedding, and then this is for a friend, an athlete. So it'll be fun. They just mostly want to have a party and get some photos with their friends.
That sounds like fun. I want to touch a little bit on the business side of things, Anastasia. You're basically an entrepreneur. You're running your own business. You're doing the freelance thing. Maybe share with us some of the highlights of that and what you enjoy most about that aspect, and maybe some of the pain points and where some of the struggles lie for you in this business.
Yeah, sure. I think when I first went into freelancing, I was really nervous because I'm a great employee. I will do anything that needs to get done. You need me to scrub the floor,
I've
drained.
heard that 10 times, Anastasia. I'm a great employee. And only 2 times did it ever work out.
That's right. But I was really nervous to I didn't think that I would be that committed to my own thing. And so that jump from being somebody's employee to, to working for myself, I thought would be a lot more difficult. But I think because I worked full time and essentially photographed full time, that it kind of I got to a tipping point where I was like, I can't do both and still do a really good job at both. And so I did leave the photo teaching job. And that was kind of my last job for somebody else. And then jumped into freelance full time. It was scary. It was like, good to have like a roster of some races and some people that I work for that I knew was going to call me up the next year again. But I never take anything for granted. If I met and photographed for somebody one time and we had a really like good connection and I feel like they will hire me again, I don't expect them to until the time comes to talk about that. And I feel like that served me well because there wasn't ever a disappointment. Like, this industry moves so fast, and I totally understand that I may not fit their needs anymore or whatever, right? There's always people who will take your job, right? Or will step in to fill your position. So, but it's been super great. In the beginning, I used to invite myself to races, and I'd be like, hey, I would love to show up. Do you mind if I take some photos? I can share them with you afterwards. And so that helped me build up some of those contacts with the race directors. I did that for Scat Mountain, and it's been really cool to get to know Luke more. And so the races are about, I would say, like 90% of my work. And then I also do some licensing on the side for photos for companies. And then I have gotten to work with Patagonia a little bit. So I do have some more commercial contacts, but it's mostly for just licensing of photos. And then if they need like specific coverage of their athletes, so like Western States, I worked with Coros a couple of times, but stuff like that. So that's fun. And I've kind of been playing around with the idea of photographing not just the entirety of the race, which I do like, but just to have something different to like follow a specific athlete or like their story, because you just get to dig in a little bit deeper. And that's really fun, because I do think that the thing that draws me to these races is the stories of people and what they have going on. And yeah, I think I don't know. I love getting to know people out there, and they break open and they tell you all kinds of things, and it's awesome.
Yeah. You probably hit them sometimes in their darkest moments, and you're probably the only person they see for hours.
Yeah, I've had, for whatever reason, the way that Bigfoot, the way that they were spread out, there was almost never a queue anywhere. And so some runners would see me and they were like, I haven't seen a runner in the last 4 hours. Is there anybody in front or ahead of me? Yeah. And sometimes it's a matter of like, oh yeah, there's just 5 minutes up ahead, but you wouldn't know if you're like moving at the same pace. Yeah. It's pretty fun to see a familiar face out there and to give them a little bit of support. I hope it's...
All right, the burning question. I'll just get right to it. I'm just going to go to it. How many times do runners look miserable and then they see you and force a smile for the picture?
All the time.
Guilty. I'm totally guilty.
Because they will tell me, they're like, I'll smile, but there's no way I'm running. Because I think maybe last year or the year before, we put out a post being like, hey, if you're able to, photos always look better if you run when you see us. And so I really give the people kudos, because some of them really do it, and then they like have to stop and catch their breath afterwards, which I totally get. But yeah, a lot of people would be like, oh my god, I was just throwing up, or this happened, and they'll fill you in on whatever's happening.
Sometimes those are the best pictures when someone's throwing up.
I've actually never caught somebody throwing up, I don't think. Or like people falling. As soon as I see that they're falling, I want to help them instead of like, oh, let me take a photo of this. But I think maybe slowly I'm starting to get to the point of, oh, maybe I'll take a photo and then try to help them.
Yeah.
We've done. I do live streaming for a couple races in Florida, and we had one guy was puking, and my daughters happened to be right there, and they're looking at the guy. I'm like, I couldn't get him out of the way quick enough, and right in front of them. And it's great footage. My kids were just like eyes wide open watching this guy puke at the station, and that was great. Do you post a sign like down the course a little bit that says like photographer ahead, smile?
Oh, And so, yeah, so sometimes it's like a total surprise. People are like, oh my God. Or, I was at the top of the rope section for Bigfoot. And a lot of the people, because they have their head down, they're like working with the rope. They have their sticks, there's a lot going on. Their sticks, their poles out. And then they get to the top and they're like, oh my God. They get a little nervous because they see you or they laugh or whatever. So that's also good because then you get like I don't know, get a rapport. I'll see you 1,000 times over the next 4+ days.
Yeah.
Do you usually stay on the trail, or are you trying to get off the trail a little bit and give them some room and maybe not even? Sometimes I feel like I was like, man, when I look at a picture, I'm like, man, I don't even remember the photographer being there. Were they like 100 feet off the trail with a long lens and just shooting it from a different perspective where I didn't even see them or didn't notice them?
Yeah.
Is that something you do? Yeah.
Yeah, I do that. Obviously, if there's any kind of vegetation, like we don't trample on that kind of stuff. But if the trail is narrow enough, I have to be off the trail. And if there's like a rock calling my name, I'll perch myself up there, and I don't feel like a lot of the times we have photos where you're directly interacting with the camera or you're talking to me or whatever, but it's also kind of nice to get either a long shot of you just doing your thing and you don't know that we're there, or, a really wide landscape and you're like a tiny person, and just to switch things up. But yeah, sometimes I don't call out and I don't say anything. People will see me, but some people don't, and they just go up, about their day, and they're like, oh, I never saw you out there, and then they get their photos, they're like, oh, but you were. So yeah
Sometimes those are the best photos when no one knows you're there, or you're taking a picture and they don't know you're catching them in their natural element rather than they're smiling for the camera and stuff. So yeah, when I got to smile for a picture, it looks bad, but if you get me and I don't know you're there, those are probably my best race photos.
yeah, because then I don't know, you're not putting up a front, you're just yourself.
Yeah, totally. I think you actually got one of me at Cocodona in 24. In that same way, I came across the finish line and I did the smile and I did all those things, and then like the cameras kind of went down and I could hear the shutter stopping. So I was like, all right, we're calming down. The next runner's coming in, and I kind of did like one of those deep breaths with my hands on my knees types of things, and I was like, all right, like serious face, like wow, that was tough. And then all of a sudden, like I saw that in the picture folder. I didn't even know you got it, but yeah, but it was great because it really captures the moment much better than the non-reality of the faking smile and all those things.
So a lot of your income comes from people purchasing the photos, correct?
Yeah, so a part of it is we get paid by the race because we're getting marketing content for them to post on social media, to use on their website. So they give us a flat rate for that, and then we do photo sales on the back end for the runners, and so it ends up being a decent chunk of money. And then the rest of it is like licensing photos or one-off weddings or senior sessions or whatever. So yeah,
which is good.
What do you think the percentage of?
I was gonna say, like a lot of people think when you buy that photo, it's going to the race company, not the photographer in general. So that's great some there.
Yeah, and especially it kind of depends on the race, but for the most part, we get 80% plus. For some races we get to just split them, and the race doesn't have anything to do with it. So it does come back to us, and we appreciate it. We certainly don't keep track of like, oh, well, this person bought a photo and this person didn't. I'm never going to be upset at you. I'm still going to take your photo when you're out there, right? But
she's still mad at you,
Brian.
There's
no expectation. That's right.
Much. She knows.
Yeah.
I didn't buy him in 2023. No, I didn't. No, honestly, what do you think the percentage of, like, if 300 athletes were at the Moab 240, what do you think the percentage of paid pictures is out of the 300 participants for that particular race? In general, obviously it's a guess, I would imagine.
Yeah, it would be, because I really haven't dug into the statistics of it. I would say probably if 100 people purchased photos, that seems like a lot to me. Mm-hmm. Especially, a lot of these folks do Triple Crown. So like how many, or, they come back year after year, like how many photos of yourself do you really want? I don't know. Doing the same thing kind of. Yeah, I do think about that. I'm like, when I was a runner, like if I got a cool shot of myself, I would get it, but I didn't get very good photos of myself when I was a runner.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some play in there, like the one-timer, 200, that might not do it again. They're pretty stoked. They're probably going to buy the picture package. I bought it in 2020 for Moab, and then I bought it in 22 for Moab, and it was a different start time. I was at different spots on the course at different times of day, so the lighting was like daytime and nighttime differences in certain sections. So I don't think there were like ever duplicates, except for the standard Jackson's Ladder
Yeah,
top
yeah.
picture up there. Yeah. And I don't think I saw anybody there, but there was like a still camera set up with a motion detector or something weird. Maybe is that a thing? Can you do that?
No, well, I mean, we haven't, but that's kind
Okay.
of crazy. There should,
Maybe maybe the
Animal
person
camera.
just was run, maybe the person just ran behind the bushes and was using the restroom or something.
yeah, these things happen. Like, it's not like we get bathroom breaks. We're just kind of looking if we have service. We just look at the tracker and we're like, okay, I should have enough time to like sneak off and come back.
That's right. Yeah, totally.
Do you ever position yourself so you can see like half a mile down the trail to take like a quick nap? You're like, all right, I can set my alarm for 3 minutes. That will give me time to take a nap, and then they'll be up here. Not that I've done that in a race, but
Yeah, there's definitely times when, I mean, the further the field spreads out, the more time we have in between runners. So last year I started listening to audiobooks, so that makes the time go by quite quicker. As you're like waiting to see. And if I am tired enough, I will be like, oh, I have 20 minutes before the next runner, I'll sleep for 5 or 10 minutes.
Dirt nap. It's just like an ultra. You're doing like a dirt nap and everything.
I'll find a good
Jeez, I
rock.
love it. Yeah, a good rock. I love it. That's perfect. That's so ultra.
we see a lot changing in the sport with like live streams and stuff like that. Where do you see the sport going with the photography in the future?
Yeah, I feel like I know a lot of my colleagues or people I know in the industry, maybe not trail running specifically, but with AI, things are a little bit more up in the air as far as like budgets and, companies going the AI route versus hiring a photographer. But I do feel like for the time being, the event world is kind of safe from that because we have to be out there and we're interacting with you. Like there is a human component to it. And you want photos of yourself in those landscapes doing that hard thing. You still can't I guess you could maybe plug something into AI, but it obviously wouldn't be like your specific experience. And so that's been kind of the only thing that makes me feel safe about doing photography full time and coming back to doing it. But I like the old school nature of like not a lot of media out there and it's just you and the runners, which once the front runners kind of pass at those maybe larger events with like a lot of live stream and a lot of coverage, once the front runners go by or the sponsored athlete or the influencer or whatever, then it is kind of quiet. And I feel like those are my people. I love being with the back of the pack. We just hang out, there's not a ton going on back there with other media, but it's also really nice because when I first started shooting these and I would mention to people like, oh yeah, I photograph ultra running and 200 plus miles, and they're like, is that on foot? I've never even heard of that, right? And so now there is a lot more visibility around it, and people sit and watch live streams of races for days on end, which I will probably be doing when UTMB starts, and just to check in and see what's happening. The more you're in the sport, the more you get invested in people and how they do, and so it is really cool because then more people can be involved in it and it doesn't feel so maybe exclusive. But I do feel like for the runners, I don't know, like what is it for you guys as far as like having a camera follow you around or people asking you questions, or do you notice at some of the maybe larger events that like what's your perspective as the runner? Because for me, I'm like, okay, there's just another person with a camera. Like we talk and about like getting a certain shot or whatever, but what's it like on the other end of more
I'll let you go,
media?
Brian. I haven't done a 200 yet. So I mean, most of the stuff I'm doing I'm doing 100 milers. So from the last 10 years, I think it's changed over the years to where they just got anybody they could sitting on a trail taking pictures, and then they just upload them up. And now running bigger races, now you have these bigger name or bigger well-known photographers out there. I think it makes a huge difference out there. So it is. I was helping live stream. I was helping live stream at Cocodona. So then, seeing Howie Stern, I'm like, oh, that's Howie. You knew who he was and stuff like that. And it was kind of neat to be, I feel like they've gotten a lot of, through our sport, like we know who everybody is nowadays, which is really, really cool. So I think it's changed a lot over the years.
I think for me personally, I think I go into an event kind of knowing what to expect, like the bigger race, like a Cocodona. I kind of know that I'm not a front runner either by any means, but I kind of know on day one there's going to be some drones and a lot of people out on course because we're still kind of condensed. And as that moves down the trail, eventually that buzz will go away from me, and I'll just be mid pack to back of the pack doing my thing. And I think that's really just event specific. Other smaller races, I really enjoy like the Moab where you're really remote. There isn't much out there to interact with other than the photographer and the fellow athletes and a couple of aid station people at a 10 by 10 pop-up tent, So I think I take it event by event and just kind of wrap my head around it. Like what's my expectation of the surroundings and how much interaction am I going to get? And Cocodona and Moab are two different beasts, quite honestly. I mean, they're just different ends of that spectrum.
Yeah, and I feel like it makes me feel not predatory, but there is something about like, one of the front runners or, somebody popular, when they run in, there's this like swarm of people towards them. And I'm struggling with that a little bit because when I first started shooting these 5 years ago, there was like nobody out there except for the race photographers, right? So to have more people out there, I'm like, oh, like it is fun, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, but I also want these, and maybe that's just me not being a professional runner, so I don't know what it's like, but to kind of have like the same race experience as, other people where you get to run your race and you focus on you and you don't have this media. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I feel like it's good and maybe not so good. But
I think that was one of the comments at Western States this year at Forest Hill. They said when front runners came through, a couple of them made comments that it was just overwhelming. Like they couldn't get down the road or they couldn't get to their crew. It was just too much.
And I feel like it's only getting more popular, right? So, I don't know. Maybe something needs to happen. Because I feel like at Western States, I'm going to maybe fudge this number a little bit, but I want to say there was over 150 credentialed media. And most of those are for the front runners. So, it's like, that's a lot of people just for media, right? That's official. There's...
Yeah, for sure. I was just at Leadville and we got a media pass. Simon and Nora were doing some videography to put together a little short documentary about my journey to finishing 10 Leadvilles. And they had a camera in my face, and I was like at the back, like struggling at cutoffs and all these things. But it was interesting to kind of have that perspective. Like I could tell in some of the surroundings, like my wife and my kids were like staring at the camera and like trying to get out of the shot, like a little bit trying to get out of the shot, and I just kind of let it go. Of course, again, I knew it was going to be there, so it wasn't a surprise to me, but like to have the camera in your face, it was like, whoa, like that's a bit much. But, I'm sure they were trying to get the shot, and I understand that concept as well. I think the front runners probably experienced that tenfold compared to what I just did at Leadville. And there's probably some understanding of it. But again, it could be overwhelming. It could be impeding. It could be annoying. And it could be all of those things,
At the same time, too, because, especially for, like you were saying, for your story, like as a viewer, I would love to get in, right? To feel like I'm in with you in this race. I'm kind of, I'm feeding off of your emotions. And I feel like there's both sides to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, at the end of the day, like, it's awesome.
And it's only growing.
You guys do like really cool stuff. Yeah. And I'm thankful that there are, crazy people like y'all that want to do it. So I get to be out there with you because I'm not running 100 plus miles. So I still get to be a part of it.
Well, we thank you for getting out there. We do have one, I don't know, off the cuff question here that we started in the last couple of weeks, Mandy and I, and it's not related to anything we just talked about, but it might actually tie back. We'll see. But we'll go there anyway. So we've already talked to Jeff and asked him about it, but we wanted to know, like, what's your guilty pleasure outside of the photography, outside of driving hundreds of hours of miles to get to a race, to get home? Like, what are you doing on your downtime that might not be that productive, but yet you still enjoy it? I just shared recently, mine was like watching buskers on YouTube. Like I like like live street performers, and they're all over the world because it's on YouTube and I could just watch it on my phone. But I'll watch that until like 1 a.m, like with headphones on in bed next to my wife, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Nothing," and I'm like kind of like rocking out to somebody singing songs, on the street corner, some half-assed artist on the side of a subway, platform in New York City or something like that. So that's my guilty pleasure. So do you have anything like that? I'm sure you do, but would you be willing to share it with us?
Yeah. I've really gone into plants. I don't know if you can see some of them back there.
All
So I
right, all
have
right.
a ton of indoor plants, and then I have a garden this year. This is my second or third year. So yeah, I just kind of, we harvested some potatoes. The tomatoes are starting to turn. We have peppers, onions, kale,
Wow.
strawberries, all kinds of stuff. So that's been really special. But I start it and then I leave for the summer. So then my husband has to be the one to, pull any weeds and water.
I was going to
and
ask about that. I thought there might be some joint effort there.
Yeah, definitely good effort. And then I started reading, doing a lot of audiobooks. So like last year I did like 150 books of like, not like self-help books. That used to be my thing back in the day, but more of like fantasy, romance, sci-fi, just whatever sounds good. So,
Right.
Yeah.
And they're all audio. So you're sort of productive, right? With audiobooks, like you're doing something else probably usually.
Yeah. And well, some of them are audio, some of them are physical, but also when I'm driving the hundreds of hours and miles, like in a single day, I can listen to an entire book if it's like between 12 and 15 hours. So it's like, I drove and I listened to something today.
Sure. All right. That's cool. Anastasia, where could our listeners find you at? Where can we follow you at?
I'm mostly just on Instagram _Anastasia Wilde. And that's about it. And
That's Wild with an E at the end.
that's correct. And yeah, sometimes I feel really gung-ho about posting, and then other times I won't be on there for months at a time, at least posting wise. But that's where most of my posting happens.
Nice and simple.
Well, thanks again for your time. We appreciate it. Yeah. We enjoyed the conversation. We will look for you on the side of the trail if we see you first. Maybe we will. Maybe we won't. Who knows? Always a pleasure, though, Anastasia. I appreciate you.
Well, it was really
Nice
good to
talking
chat.
with you.